Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and in this video, we're looking at how to make a Metroidvania-style minimap. We're going to set this map up so that you can toggle it with a button. Each time you enter a new room, it will add that room to your map. We'll add icons for things like treasure chests and bosses, as well as a dynamic icon that will move between rooms as the player himself moves. All of this will be done using the Service Locator architecture that we set up in our last video so that we can make sure our minimap integrates smoothly with the rest of our systems. That's where we're headed in this video. Let's get started. Now we will want our map to persist between scenes, so let's grab our bootstrap scene and drag it up into the hierarchy. Here we can begin by creating a UI canvas. I'm going to call this one minimap, and mine accidentally placed in the wrong scene, so I'll just make sure that it's actually in the bootstrap. On the canvas, we just have one thing we need to do. We're going to go to our canvas scaler here and make sure that rather than constant pixel size, we scale with screen size. If you click on game, you can see your reference size. Whatever you're using there is what needs to go in this box. All right, at this point, we can right-click our canvas and add a panel. If we go to scene view and double-click the panel, we'll be able to see how it fills the screen. And I just want to bring it in a little bit so it doesn't fill the entire thing. I'm going to put a margin of about 200 all around the outside. Then in game view, you can see that this creates a nice overlay. All right, let's put a title for our map here. So I'll just right-click on the panel, add some Text Mesh Pro, and for now I'm just going to type in Metroidvania. You might type the name of your world here. You can then make this look however you want. I'm going to make this nice and large, set it to the bangers font, and also make sure that it's centered and kind of at the top of the map here. I'll make sure to rename this first one as title, and then I'm going to duplicate it, call the next one subtitle. I'm just going to put a subtitle of minimap on here. You can do this however you like, and I'll just drag it down below. I'll make this one a little smaller, and there we go. I've got a title and subtitle, and we're ready to start adding some rooms. Now, how you set up your rooms is going to look a little different depending on the style of your game, and so I'm just going to show how to do this using Unity's shapes, since rooms are just shapes anyways. So let's right click here, and I'm just going to create an empty game object called a room holder, and this is going to be where we add, you guessed it, all the rooms. Now my first room is actually just kind of a rectangle here with a door on the right. So when I click on my room holder, we want to represent that. Now I'll start by just adding a UI image, and I'll name this as room 1. I'll move this off to the side on the map here. I'm going to just change the shape a little bit, and then I'm actually going to add another UI image right on top of it. This one will actually represent the inside of the room. I'm just going to make it a slightly grayer shape. I'll then click on my rect transform and stretch it in all directions and just add a little bit of a margin. I'm going to go with a margin of 10 all around the outside. You can see that this creates kind of an image of a room with an outline. Now I just need to add a door onto this. So I'm actually just going to duplicate the room because it's got the gray. I'll call this one door A, and then I'll just kind of stretch it down into a little rectangle so that it creates an opening where my door is. All right, there we have it, our first room with its first doorway. At this point, I'm just going to duplicate the doors as there could be a door on all 4 sides in future rooms, so I'll call these door B, C, and D, and then I'll just turn off the doors that I'm not using. At this point, I just want to add some optional icons for things like treasure chests or bosses. My first one will be a boss here. I'm going to make it kind of a deep red so it looks menacing, and just give it a little bit of rotation. Let's do 45 degrees, and then we'll also just shrink it down. I can drag that into a corner, and that can be my boss. And if you like, you can swap out the image sprite here for something like a skull or something else a little more fun. At this point, I'll duplicate my boss. I'm going to change the name to chest and give it kind of a golden color. I'll then just remove the rotation, stretch it out a bit, and there we go, I've got a treasure chest. Now my first room doesn't have either of these, so I can actually just shift-click both those icons and turn them off. Now that we've got a template set up for each of our rooms, I'll duplicate this one, call it room 2, and just kind of drag it off to the side here. I'm then just going to drag room 2 up into my hierarchy so that I can take a look at it. And here you'll see that it's another rectangular room, but this time we've got doors going left, up, and right. So I'll make sure that I get door A, and I'm actually going to put it where door A is in my room on the left here. I'll then turn door B on and move it up top to represent that door, and then turn on door C and move that into place as well. Then I'm just going to repeat this process for my other rooms, making sure to enable any icons, for example the boss in room 3, and I'll also enable a treasure chest for room 4. Okay, now that I've got a basic mini-map set up, we're ready to actually hook this thing up and make it do something. Let's begin by just getting it to toggle on and off. Now first I'm just going to unload these extra rooms for now, And then let's come down to our scripts where we can create a new folder for minimap. There's actually just going to be 2 here, but I like to keep things organized. Then we can create a mono behavior script, and let's call this first one minimap toggle. Now we've been using the new input system for all of our inputs so far, and if I click on my player, you can see that he's got this player input module. Now we could put all of our code for toggling the map on the player where all our other inputs are, and that would kind of make sense, except that player and minimap is kind of mixing responsibilities, and I want to keep them separate here. So while we will still be accessing the same input system, we're going to do it from the minimap itself. It'll take a couple extra lines of code, but it will keep responsibilities separate and make our code more readable for the future. So let's head over to our minimap. I'm just going to add this minimap toggle right onto here now. And if I go back to assets, we have this input system actions map that we created earlier in the series and that comes with any new game in Unity 6. Now, this is going to be a UI action, so if you go to UI, you'll see that there's already a cancel here. So we actually don't need to do anything at all. We just want to make sure that we're calling that UI cancel option. So let's go ahead and open up our script. Now we can begin by getting rid of start and update as we won't need those, and we're just going to need 2 references here. The first will be a serialized private reference to the game object of our minimap. This is what will allow us to turn it on and off. And we'll have another serialized private reference, this time to an input action reference, meaning which action in the input system do we want to use here. Now next, we're just in awake going to make sure that as soon as we turn the game on, our minimap gets to set active false, meaning just it'll turn the minimap off if we left it on. Now, since we're using the cancel action, we'll make a private void method called onCancel. In brackets, it does need to take in an input action.callback context, which just gets called context. Here, we'll make sure that the minimap gets set active to, here we'll just check if the minimap is already active. So we put the not here, meaning it just flips the value of the minimap. If it's active, it'll turn it off. If it isn't active, it'll turn it on. At this point, just make sure that you've spelled minimap correctly, and also you're going to be getting an error. So let's come up top here and make sure that we're using unityengine.inputSystem. That'll take care of the input action reference so Unity actually knows what that means. Now back in Unity, we can click on the minimap and we've got 2 boxes to fill in. First of all, the minimap, and actually here we're just going to drag in the panel as we don't want to turn off the parent object with the script. And then for the minimap toggle action, we can just click on this and it should show all of the actions in our input system. I'm just going to make sure to use the UI cancel one here. At that point, I'll just make sure to remove the bootstrap from the hierarchy here and we can load scene 1. All right, so when we get in the game, things are kind of working. It does turn the map off on awake, which is what we want. However, pressing cancel doesn't do anything. And that's largely just because of some of the complications with the new input system. It takes a little extra work to set up, and since we didn't put it on our player, who has the actual input actions component, it's just a tiny bit of extra work. So all we want to do here is on enable, so as soon as the minimap is enabled in game, we want to subscribe to the menu toggle action, and specifically we want to know when that action is performed. And whenever it is performed, we want to call our onCancel method. The one other thing we need to do is just make sure that the menu toggle action is actually enabled. Then we just want to make sure that we also disable this. So in onDisable, so anytime the map gets turned off or destroyed, we will get rid of that subscription, and also we can disable the action. All right, with that done, we're ready to test this thing out, and now when we get in Unity, the map turns off when we start, and now hitting escape does in fact toggle our minimap off and on. Next up, we want to be able to actually discover rooms each time we enter one and add them to our map. So let's create a new mono behavior script, and we'll just call this one minimap system. Let's open that up, and let's begin by getting rid of start and update again. And here we'll just start by making a serialized private list of game objects, and this is just where we'll put all of the rooms that we're going to be turning on our map. Now, in order for a list to be recognized by Unity, we do need to add that we are using the system.collections.generic namespace. I always like to show how this stuff works, so let's go back to Unity, click on our minimap, and add the minimap system on here. We've now got a drop-down menu for all of our rooms, and if we open up the minimap, I'll just lock my inspector here so it stays on this page, and then we can shift-click all 4 rooms and drag them in here. One thing that you should note is that the name of the room here, room 1, room 2, should be an exact match to the actual name of the scene that it's connected to. So make sure that those do in fact line up exactly. All right, so next let's make a public method called reveal room. And this will just take in a string, which is the name of the room we've just entered. So first, let's make a local reference, which is going to hold the game object that we want to turn on. We'll call it room. And here, we're going to look at our rooms list, and we're going to use a find function. So the way find works is, first of all, it's going to yield us a room. That's that reference we just made. And that room is going to be equal to whichever item in our rooms list has a name that matches the room name we're looking for. Here we'll just do a little defensive check to make sure that we actually found a room. So if the room is not null after we've done that, then we're going to turn that room on. We'll set it active. Let's add an else here though, so that we get a bit of a warning if something went wrong and it couldn't find the room. Here we'll just say no minimap found for room. We'll concatenate this with a plus sign and then just actually put the room name. So it'll actually tell us what room it couldn't find. Now this minimap system is actually going to work nicely now, except that it actually needs to be called and notified when we enter a new room. So to do this in our awake method, we're going to make sure that it registers itself with the service locator. It'll just pass on a script called minimap system, and specifically it's going to pass itself along. That way other scripts can access it easily. Now this next part could be done in a whole new script. However, earlier in the series we created a room service object that we put into every room that is just designed to notify things and set stuff up as soon as we enter a room. This is a really logical place to notify our minimap. So let's open up room service. Now currently room service works as a data provider, letting objects in our bootstrap know where things like the camera confiner or parallax manager are. This is also a great place to just let the minimap system know we've entered a new room. So in start, and we're putting it here because we want to give everything time to register itself in awake, we'll just call a new method called discover room. Now we could put all of our logic here, but I find it's much more readable if each function gets its own name. So let's make a new void method called discover room. And this is really pretty simple. Whenever we discover a room, we just want to talk to the service locator and get the thing we want to talk to, in this case a minimap system. And then we just want to tell that minimap system to run its reveal room method. Now of course reveal room needs to know what room we just entered. So here we're just going to ask our scene manager to get the active scene, and specifically we want to pass along the name of that scene. Now this will give us an error, so up top we just need to make sure that we add using unityengine.scenemanagement. Alright, so now whenever we enter a room, in start, the room service will let the minimap system know that it needs to reveal that room. The only problem right now is that if we go into the game and run it, we can hit escape, and you'll notice that our entire minimap is already revealed. And that's actually just because we never turned them off. Let's automate this by doing it in our script. So if we head to the minimap system, here in awake, let's just make sure that we loop through all of our rooms and set their activeness to false right away. And now at last, when we get in the game, you can hit escape and you should just see room 1. And when we head over to room 2, you can hit escape again, and there it is, room 2. All right, our next step is optional. You could be done right here if you want. That said, if you'd like to have a dynamic marker for where the player is, we're going to show how to add that now. So let's load our bootstrap up here, open up the minimap, and I'm actually just going to create a single UI image here, which will be our player. I'm going to make mine black, size it down a bit, and then I'm just going to move it into the spot in room 1 for now, though we'll use code to dynamically put it in the right place as we go. Let's open up our minimap system to make this happen. Now unfortunately it is a little bit of work, but let's just dive in and make this happen. So first of all, we're going to need a serialized private reference to the rect transform of our player icon. This is very similar to a transform on a normal game object, except that since we're dealing with UI, we need the rect transform. Next, and this is the part that just might feel a little weird, we're actually going to need to create a dictionary here. Our dictionary always can hold 2 different values, so it'll have a string, which will be the name of the room, and also a rect transform, which is just going to be the location of that room on our minimap so that it knows where to put our player icon. We'll call this room position. Next, let's come down into awake, and we'll just add some logic here. So we'll take that room positions dictionary and just initialize it as a new empty dictionary as soon as the game begins. We'll then come into our for each loop where we look at each of the rooms in our rooms list. And we still want to make sure to turn them off on awake, but we also want to get their rect transform and add it to our dictionary. We'll call this room T. And so for each of them, we'll just grab the rect transform component that's on the room. And then in the next line, we'll go to our dictionary of room positions, and we're just going to add the room's name as well as its rect transform. Now we've got a fully initialized dictionary with all of our rooms and their locations. Finally, we'll just get our player's icon, go to the game object itself, and just turn it off. Now we're all set up. We just need to make sure now that we do the right thing when we reveal a room. Now we will actually be getting rid of this top line here, as we're going to look at a slightly different way to do it now that we've got a player, but I'll just leave it there for reference now. So first of all, we're gonna do an if statement here. We'll look at our room positions dictionary and we're just gonna try to get a value for the room name we're looking for. Now if it finds that room, it'll spit out the rect transform and we'll call that room T. Now first of all, we wanna add some logic for what happens if we don't find the room in our list. And here we'll just put that debug warning that we had before and we'll return, as we won't wanna try to execute any more logic because something went wrong. However, if we did find the room, we want to turn it on. So let's first of all make this room T, since we renamed the variable. And just since that's a transform, we need to add the .gameObject part so that we can actually turn the game object on. Now we can get our player icon, we can turn its game object on now, and we'll also set the player icon's local position to be equal to the room transform's local position. All right, now we've turned the player on and also put him in the right location. And now's that fun moment where I notice my spelling mistakes. First of all, let's just go up to our dictionary and make sure that this is room positions, since that's what I refer to it as elsewhere. And finally, where I have my rect transform here, we're just making a list of singular rect transforms, not a list of lists, so get rid of that S. Back in Unity now, we can look at our minimap system and just drag our player icon into that player icon box. At this point, we can remove the bootstrap scene and give this thing a whirl. Now, if I play the game now, the player will turn on and he'll just be stuck on forever and he won't turn off when we turn the map off. So let's make sure that he's part of the panel. Now when we run the game, things are working nicely. We can hit escape, we can take a look at our minimap in the first room and the player's there, and when we head to the second room, not only does it reveal the room, but the player is also there, and we can do the same with our other rooms. All right, that's working really nicely. Let me know if there's anything else you would like to see here. If I get enough interest, we could do a more advanced minimap where we reveal by maybe collecting maps or something like that, but I'll just wait and see if there's actually some interest before I go ahead with that. Otherwise, this concludes our scene transition series. Thanks so much for following along for the ride, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.